Morning, how are you all? Is everyone warm today?
No.
No, well I'm not either. We just have to kind of be warm together, I guess. So this is called the Snowman Uprising on Hickory Lane. Do you know what an uprising is?
When people, like troublemakers.
Yeah. Okay. Complain? Yeah, that's when people kind of get upset about something, and so they decide they're going to do something about it. So that's what this story is about. So why don't we get started? And we have the pictures from the book up above me. So if you all want to listen and watch that, we'll see how this goes. So, the back door of the Crease Laundry burst open and belched out a cloud of pungent steam. And from out of that cloud emerged Buster Biggle to begin his 10-block walk to the little house on Hickory Lane, where he lived alone. It was Monday evening, 4 days before Christmas, and winter had finally arrived in town that afternoon, carried through the streets on the shoulders of a cold front that plunged the temperature from the mid-50s into the upper 20s. A block from Buster's house at the intersection of Magnolia and Sycamore Streets, the cold front failed to yield to a lingering mass of moist, warm air, and the resulting collision filled the sky with swirling snow flurries. Now, Buster was a big man. Polite people described him as substantial or grocery enhanced, and most days he worked up a sweat, pressing and folding shirts in the back room of the crisp crease. So when he came to the corner of Magnolia and Sycamore, the moisture on his head crackled into frost, giving him a silvery halo. What's more, the swirling snow flurries began to stick to his well-worn sweater, while his shuffling feet stirred the fresh powder up off the sidewalk and onto his wrinkled trousers. 2 blocks over on Hickory Lane, Frankie Fletcher and his gang of hormonally charged hellions came roaring out of a garage on bicycles onto the freshly dusted streets for their nightly post-dinner tear. After banging mailboxes, kicking over trash cans, and chasing stray cats, they came ripping around the corner onto Magnolia and skidded to a halt. "What the heck?" said Frankie, looking way up the street at the white mass moving up the sidewalk in the glow of the street lamps. "Looks like a snowman," said Luther Langford. "No way," said another. "Wait a minute, look," said Frankie. And he pointed at the large white figure coming closer, moving in and out of the shadows. "It's Buster Biggle." Frankie reached down and scooped up a handful of fresh snow and packed it into a tight, hard ball. The others did the same and then waited for Frankie's signal. Buster never heard or saw the bicycles coming down the street, and his cold head turned to fire when the first snowball smacked him squarely between the eyes. The next thing he knew, he was under full attack, with snowballs thwacking him from head to foot. Shielding his face with his hands, he made a blind turn off the sidewalk and tumbled over a hedge, rolling in the grass and gathering more snow with his clothing. As he struggled to get up, there was a second barrage of snowballs, and then he heard the rattle of metal chains on sprockets as Frankie and his gang rode away chanting, "Buster the Snowman, Buster the Snowman." That night, the wind kicked the snow up into a blizzard, and by Tuesday morning, Hickory Lane was a wavy snowscape of buried cars, hedgerows, picket fences, and fire hydrants. With the streets impassable, Frankie and his gang roamed the neighborhood on foot. What they lost in mobility was more than compensated by what they gained in snowballs. They merely had to walk with their hands dangling at their sides to load up with a never-ending supply of white bombs. And so they spent the day attacking everything that made a good target. Cats and dogs, squirrels, bird feeders and banners, street lamps, and the occasional delivery truck. By evening, they'd run out of victims, and Frankie was about to send the gang home when he spotted Buster ambling down the sidewalk. Clicking his tongue, Frankie positioned the gang behind a hedgerow and ordered them to manufacture new missiles while he watched Buster's progress. They crouched in frozen silence as Buster huffed by, waiting till he was a dozen yards past them before attacking from the rear. Buster was wearing a hat and parka and a large plastic bag slung over his shoulder, so this time the snowballs glanced harmlessly off his back as he trudged to his front walk, up the steps, and through the front door. Wednesday morning, Frankie was making the rounds to gather the gang, and as they came down Hickory Lane, a door flew open, and Slim Smothers came sliding down the sidewalk to the curb with big news. Buster, who lived next door, was up to something. I heard him huffing and grunting all night long. Frankie and his gang tromped toward the side of the house and immediately noticed that Buster's side yard was almost bare of snow. Looking closely, they found footprints in the frosty grass leading to the backyard gate. On Frankie's command, they quietly climbed on the center rail of the wood fence to look over the top. "It's like an army," whispered Slim. Sure enough, there in Buster's backyard were a dozen or more tall, round snowmen standing in neat rows. Frankie was counting them, 8, 10, 12, when he saw movement out of the corner of his eye. He pulled his head down, and then, peeping carefully, he realized it was Buster shuffling to the back door.
How did you create the book?
How did I what?
Create the book.
Well, I've always liked to make up stories and write stories, and so I just had this idea once of a story about snow people and what would happen if they kind of became the people in charge.
Oh, okay. Another question?
Was it your Christmas card that you did?
Yes. Well, that's another thing, too. Every year I try to write a Christmas story, and this was one from a few years ago, and we decided to put it in a book. I will get her, yes.
When did you start making books?
Well, I didn't start making books until a couple of years ago, but I started writing stories a long time ago. In fact, you all in the 3rd grade? Well, when I was in the 2nd grade, which was a long, long time ago, I wrote a story, and our schools up in the Dallas area put a book together, and my story was put in this book. It wasn't my book, but it was a book with stories from school children all over the schools in that part of town. So that's when I first got a story published. And so I've been writing stories and making things up ever since. Yes? No, my book's not famous yet. But that's not really why I do it. I do it just I want to tell a story, and then I hope other people read it and like it too. That's the main reason to write a story. But you have a story inside you, and you write it down, and you share it with your friends.